Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Welcome to episode 28 of Coffee and Commerce. Great to be with you today. Today we've got Nikki Baird, VP of Retail Innovation at Aptos Retail. Welcome, Nikki.
Thanks.
Nikki, it's great to have you. We've got quite a diverse audience. We've got folks that are just starting their careers, folks that are have been in their careers for a number of years, are pivoting to direct to consumer, and then we've got folks that are running Fortune 500 companies. So we're going to be kind of all over the place today, but I would love to give value to each and every one of them. So starting out, let's talk a little bit about your early life, your passions, what got you to where you are right now, and we'll go from there.
All right, that sounds good. I'll actually try not to make this like a hugely long story because I'm going to start at a place that's going to sound a little intimidating, which was when I was really little. Both of my parents were in the technology space. So my dad fixed mainframes for a lot of Southern California, like the Los Angeles School District, the San Diego School District. Did some work for the Navy, all mainframe stuff. We had an HP mainframe that he had Frankenstein together out of spare parts, like in our garage. We had terminals in our room, so we did instant messaging before instant messaging was cool. We were definitely to the hilt tech. My mom worked for Burroughs making computer chips. And when I was 11, she went to work for a startup in the Ventura area that was making gallium arsenide computer chips that was then acquired by Cray Computer Company, which is actually how I got to Colorado. So steeped in technology, but the important part about it was that my mom's career was taking off at the same time that my dad's career was being put out of business by essentially the same activities that my mom was taking off in. Wow. So really saw kind of the transformative power of technology from that perspective. Didn't know it at the time, but in retrospect, it's like that was actually kind of a pretty powerful impact on my life. When I was in high school, I was a blue light special girl for Kmart. That was my start in retail. And on a really good day, you could probably get me to rattle that off. I think I still remember it. I said it about 5,000 times. But I was also there during the time that Kmart rolled out barcode scanning at their registers in the store that I was in, which was in Simi Valley, California. And the price file for the ad prices didn't load that day. And I was the only person who showed up for work in my department, which was women's wear. So the first call came like, hey, price check for apparel at register 1. And then while I was standing at that register trying to figure out why the sale price wasn't ringing up, the price check at register 5 for apparel, and then price check at register 3 for apparel. It was like, oh no. I remember staring at the manager on duty, like our eyes both just widened as we really realized what exactly had happened. And I was the only person who showed up in my department. So you want to talk about the transformative impact of technology in retail? I got a frontline look at what happens if you don't do it well. So that actually really shaped my passion for retail and technology. You know, retail runs the economy. We can't function as an economy without retail. And nowadays we can't function as an economy without technology. So a really important intersection that kind of, it all shaped my journey after that.
That's incredible. I mean, I think that like fast forwarding to where you are today, what you're working on, how you're advising companies, I think the combination of your upbringing, your parents, what they were doing, what they went through in terms of one technology essentially making the other one obsolete, which, spoiler alert, is very interesting in terms of the rest of the conversation we're going to have around retail, et cetera. So tell us from there, kind of give us a sense of your career trajectory to where you are today.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that it was not focused. Like I give this talk sometimes to my kids' high school and talk about how I had no clue what I wanted to do with my life. I have a degree in international affairs and Russian, just to give you a sense for how much my college education really applied. But I fell back into that retail technology role. I was working for a small company in Colorado that a retailer in Boulder that was on the cusp of technology transformation itself. They bought computerized cash registers for the first time. I was the only person in the company who knew anything about it, and ended up implementing point of sale, back office, some order management kind of before everything was said and done. And I realized, this is it. This is what I probably should be focused on doing. So I went back to school, got my MBA, and then did consulting. Came out of MBA program, hired by PricewaterhouseCoopers, did IT strategy consulting, all for retail for about 4 years. And it was sort of that really solidified everything, at least for me personally, like that being able to translate technology to business and business to technology, and to do that with the domain expertise of retail, to be able to, talk about that frontline worker experience as well. Like, what are you doing to the poor cashier if you don't pay attention to how you implement this? All of that kind of solidified from there. So I went from there to the software world. I went from there to the industry analyst world. I was at Forrester for a couple years, and then left to co-found RSR, Retail Systems Research, which is a boutique industry analyst firm focused on the retail industry. And I was there for 10 years before I got seduced back by Aptos to the software world.
That is incredible. Thank you for sharing that with everyone. Okay, so let's focus a little bit around the last kind of 18 months, if you will. I think that we're still in a period where everybody's trying to figure out what is that next normal in retail and e-commerce and omni-channel across the board. And certainly we've seen a significant rise in e-commerce. At the same time, we've seen retail brands starting to reemerge. I mean, the latest results that came out of TJ Maxx and Ross have significantly beaten analyst expectations. With all of that being said, like, let's looking back at the last 18 months, kind of what are the most startling consumer trends that you've observed?
Shoes, I have to say. Aptos serves primarily fashion customers. We've broadened our experience with the acquisition of Revionics, so we cover grocery and fast-moving consumer goods as well. But in the beginning of the pandemic, we primarily served only fashion customers, and we saw, as a category, shoes took off completely. It didn't make any sense because people didn't need to wear shoes. But I guess people wanted to up their game for their excuses to go for walks and to go outside. So, athleisure was not unexpected as a big category, but just shoes in general, the fact that it was strong throughout. One of our customers is Crocs, and as they've reported, they've done really well through the pandemic. So just the fact that everybody felt like they needed house shoes, I guess, was a big surprise for me behaviorally.
Yeah, it's interesting when we look back at kind of, there's some really intuitive things that occurred, meaning like people aren't necessarily getting lipstick or things of that nature because their faces are covered, or other kind of categories like occasion wear and whatnot. Intuitively, you would expect them to go down, but then to your point, shoes is something that you wouldn't expect to increase, but it's quite interesting. I think that too many people talk about consumer behavior changing, and overall, I think that consumer behavior is pretty consistent, right? People want things that are quality at great prices that are accessible. When somebody wants something, they want it as quickly as they can get it, essentially. But I think that brands, what's ended up happening is brands that won over the last 18 months were quickly able to adapt, were quickly able to deliver those things to their consumers, and shift to meet that consumer demand. From your perspective, what are some of the attributes that have led, that winning brands have exhibited over the last 18 months that others can learn from?
Yeah, I have to give a plug for the brands that were really thinking about technology. Nike is a really great example of that, of being able to really flex because they were already going down a road of really blurring the lines between digital and physical, and able to tap into store inventory, able to kind of really shift their focus from driving people to stores to driving people to the app. And it's that flexibility that is enabled by embracing technology that I think was key. I mean, we talked to some retailers who had not implemented, any omni-channel capability. Buy online, pick up in store, ship from store was like the key capability that you needed during the pandemic. And, when we would come in and talk to them about, well, how can we get started and let's get this capability up and running. And some of them, their own internal processes, even knowing that they couldn't touch store inventory without being able to ship from store, they were putting together 12, 16-week project plans to get that done. And it's like that, you guys need that in 3 weeks, not 3 months. That's not going to work.
And just to kind of further explain what Nikki's talking about here. So you've got folks that sell online. And then when you have an online business, it's a lot simpler, right? Because you've got probably like one inventory source or multiple warehouses or a 3PL that's shipping for you. But regardless, you have allocated all of your inventory for those folks that are online versus brands that have physical retail. And to Nikki's point, they didn't have the ability to even allocate inventory. And it wasn't a matter of like, okay, I've got this on my shelf so somebody can buy it online and then we can ship it from the store. Like their back-end systems, et cetera, their processes don't even allow for that. So it sounds like there are a lot of these organizations that were kind of over processing, like they had too much process in place and they couldn't break from that. And then others that just didn't have the technology to be able to say, look, I've got all these physical stores. Now I need to somehow be able to sell online, use my physical stores as distribution centers, and then ultimately figure out kind of how I'm going to come back to this once I open my stores.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And it was really fascinating to see. We could see it in our we have a basket of retailers where we can look at aggregated results. And you could see e-commerce take off at the beginning of the pandemic, right? Clearly, stores were closed. Everybody shifted all their purchasing to online. But then over about 3 or 4 weeks, you could see that the online sales were actually starting to stall out. And it was because they were running out of inventory. They didn't have inventory in their DCs. And so even though the demand was there, they couldn't fulfill that demand. And so there were some retailers who were, sending a store manager into their brick and mortar store to just pack orders that they could ship out of the back, even if they had to hack it and worry about the inventory later. Because they otherwise they would have to turn away online sales because they couldn't tap into that in-store inventory.
For sure. And I think that there are kind of two things that occurred here. One was the ability to quickly get e-commerce up and running with not just the .com, not just the ability to take payment, but to Nikki's point, the ability to actually be able to fulfill product. And I think that's a significant thing that many brands, many organizations, large and small, don't really consider. They don't consider the demand that's there. So many brands that we work with and we talk to all the time were surprised and shocked at how quickly e-commerce revenue shot up. And then in many cases, when they had product, just sustained and it became another channel. So I think that there's this concept in many boardrooms and discussions where they're talking about incremental revenue of e-commerce. And really, it's not an or situation, it's an and situation. And you're seeing that now with retailers opening up, that the e-commerce kind of consumer, the .com consumer is still there. But I think what's really important is for brands to start to think about the role that each of these channels plays within the psyche of the consumer, and the fact that the retail experience should be unique to the .com experience, that should be unique to your Amazon or Walmart experience, because the consumer is there for a different reason in many cases. The products they're looking for are different, and the relationship that they have with you are different. Nikki, I'd love for you to kind of talk to us about your experience and expertise on that front, specifically with regards to those kind of 3 or 4 channels. What moving forward now, stores opening up, now that you've got retail stores open, you've got the .com channel that the brands have, you've got the Walmart, Amazons of the world in terms of e-tail. How should brands start to think about these different channels?
Yeah, I mean, I agree that I think that customers who come to different channels come there with different objectives in mind, and you've really got to make sure that you're catering to that. But I also would say that you need to make sure that those experiences are not so distinct as to feel disconnected from the consumer's perspective. And you've got to put some effort into building the bridges between some of those channels so that consumers can move more seamlessly between them, because they do. I mean, I might be an online shopper in some contexts and I might be a store shopper in other contexts, but I'm still me and I still want to be recognized that way, no matter what my context is with that retailer. So I think there's that aspect of it. I would say that, you know, I think that as an industry overall, we have this perspective that, oh, you know, omnichannel is more mature now. Like, we have a better understanding. We've been doing it for a while, and we're at the point where it's kind of more, it's more integrated, or we have a better idea about how to integrate it. And this may short circuit some later questions from you, but I'm going to go ahead and throw it in there. I think we're on the cusp of a new definition of omnichannel, to be honest. You know, when I have customers who are coming to us who are saying, look, I'm a brand and I mostly sell through wholesale. I do have some retail stores because I've had to diversify or whatever. Not that retail was ever a main strategy, but because like all the consolidation in department stores has forced them to address it. But they're coming and saying, look, I want, you know, if I'm Movado and I have a customer who comes to movado.com to buy a watch, I want them to buy online and pick up at Macy's. And when you think about the inventory transaction that's required to support that, that's very, very aggressive. And the kind of integration and inventory visibility that has to be shared among two business partners and all of that fun stuff. But you know, they're looking at omnichannel as truly buy anywhere, get anywhere. As a consumer, if I decide that I want to buy something, there should be a buy button in front of me, like as soon as I decide that I want it. And it shouldn't matter to me who's serving up that buy button. And it also shouldn't matter to me what inventory ultimately is used to fulfill my demand, as long as I get it my way. And that might be that I want it shipped to my house today, but next time I want to go and pick it up at a store that I'm going to happen to be stopping at on my way from someplace else. Like, that total flexibility, not just within the one brand experience, but
Sure.
It doesn't matter the brand that's providing that.
No, I think that's fascinating. I think that historically, and when I say historically, I'm talking about like 2-3 years ago, right?
Yeah.
The notion was, I control as a brand a number of channels. So I may be controlling my own Amazon channel, my own .com, and I have physical retail stores. And I want to be able to integrate those things so I have one common view of the customer. So that if a customer comes into my Movado store and they purchased online, when they walk in, I know who they are. I know what their taste is. I know what they browsed online. And then my salesperson can essentially speak to them, knowing who they are, and give them value. So I think that the key was, how can we as an organization, as a brand, deliver end-to-end value with the channels that we control with our customer, so that the customer is getting the value they're looking for across the board, right? And then comes the whole point of like, hey, value shouldn't just be to purchase. It should also go post-purchase to experience and loyalty. But that's kind of a bit separate. What you're mentioning is quite fascinating. So these brands are now looking at, I want to deliver value to my consumer wherever my brand exists. So I don't control Macy's, I don't control Nordstrom, but I'm there. And so I want somebody to be able to go on Movado.com, purchase, and then decide, you know what, there's a Nordstrom down the street and I'm going to be passing by there in 2 hours, so I want to pick it up there.
Yep.
And that's a fascinating thing. To your point, there's so much involved there in terms of inventory allocation, accounting, order processing, integration with the POS. But I think one thing that's really interesting, like that's like the technical stuff, someone's got to figure out the piping, whatnot. But I think one thing that's really interesting there is consumer data. So when we think about that, the reason why Movado wants to do that, the reason why anybody wants to do that, is because once they have your attention, once you are on their experience, again, I'm going to sound like a broken record, they want to make sure that they can deliver end-to-end value for you. So it's not just many retailers who do this or many brands who do this. It's like, look, you've got this site looks like an e-commerce site. When you go to purchase, it says go to Costco.com or go to Costco or go somewhere else, right? They want to actually make sure that they can put product in your hand where you want it. Now, what they're trying to do is give you value as a consumer, because that'll increase your kind of feeling towards the brand, right?
Yep.
It'll make you feel better about the brand. You'll have more brand loyalty. At the same time, they'll get quite a bit of data that they can then turn around and identify other people like you that they can essentially position products in front of. Now, with that being said, there's a reciprocal relationship that I don't think exists, and I'd love your POV on it, which is, again, using Movado as an example.
Sure.
I'm on Movado.com.
They're going to love me for using them as that example, but great.
Somebody purchases online, any brand, right? When you purchase online, and we hear this term quite often, first party data, which essentially means somebody bought from you. So you know who they are. You have some information on them. They're your customer. Then you can email them, you can SMS, send them messages, etc. once you get their opt-in. But essentially, you have a direct relationship with them. Now, what happens is that's on Movado.com. But if I go into Macy's and I go and purchase a Movado watch, or I go to Best Buy and I purchase a GoPro, neither of these brands know who I am. They don't know anything about me unless I go register my product, which is what brands try to do in the past. But it's like, why would I register my product? What value do I get? Mm-hmm. So everybody's kind of building a moat around that first party data. Movado wants their own, GoPro wants their own. Macy's doesn't give that information out because they consider them their customer. But, and bear with me here, I'm getting to a point or a question. The point of this first party customer data is really important. What do you envision brands doing in the future to be able to deliver that counter value to these brands? So the retailer delivers a counter value to the brand, so that if I purchase a GoPro at Best Buy, GoPro knows who I am. Will that ever happen?
I think it will. I do. I mean, because when it comes down to it, for the retailer who sells other people's products, other brands, right? So they're not a brand manufacturer all on their own. There has to be some other value proposition to the consumer beyond that. I have lots of brands, right? Because all those brands are available to me on another tab in my window, in my browser. Like there's no value to that. And so they have to mean something more. Curation can be some of that, but I don't think that that's entirely enough. I think services, and Best Buy is a great example, investment in Geek Squad, right? Some of the services around electronics that keep customers coming back to that brand or having a relationship with that brand. But I think that the power relationship between the brands and retailers has definitely changed significantly already, without the brands already owning all of that first party data. But I think it's going to come down to the brands actually know more about what to do with that data for their specific customers. And so for them, there's going to be value in that sharing relationship back to the retailer. I mean, some of the reason why some of these brands want buy at my.com and then go pick it up at my retail partner is because they're concerned about the health of that retail channel, right? They can't lose that much distribution overnight. When you look at the athletic apparel industry, and when Sports Authority went under, Under Armour took a huge hit as a result because they lost an enormous amount of distribution in just one shot. So they all have an incentive to try to keep that distribution channel healthy and alive. And I think as they share more of their insights, there's an incentive for both of them to come to the table together and pool the data that they have in order to be able to kind of maximize their opportunity with that customer. Retailers will always see that greater share of wallet and what else that customer spends on. And the brand will always bring the depth of that customer insight of what their customers want from their brand. And if you put those two things together, you can have something that benefits everybody. It shouldn't be a pitched battle or a two-sided war. It should be all about growing together.
Certainly. Yeah, I mean, I think that if we look back, again, several years before we had access to as many products as we do online right now, as well as the delivery times that we have right now, right? So what was missing years ago was you didn't have access to as many products as you do online, and things took forever to ship to you. And there was just the feeling that, okay, I have to try everything on in a physical retail store, specifically around fashion and apparel. And brands have made that easier, where you can buy 10, see what fits you, ship the rest back. They'll even send you a
They love you to do that
return
too,
label.
by the way.
But with that being said, I think that the moat that retail had before, to simplify it, was that it was down the street. So you had the ability to get product quickly, and then access to your point, to multiple products, multiple SKUs, multiple brands, etc.
Yep.
So with that waning, with e-commerce giving you as much access, if not more, the ability to cut down on delivery times from weeks to days to now hours in many cases, what does retail need to do to grow, frankly? And I'm not even talking about attrition. I'm not talking about staying stagnant. What does retail need to do to grow?
Yeah, I mean, they really need to maximize what they get out of their stores. Like, if you just followed, okay, we had this huge shift to online. We, you know, and we know that not all those customers are going to come back. We've lost some of those customers forever. And if you think, okay, that therefore I should be closing down stores, I should have less square footage available for stores. You know, there's some retailers who are taking a contrarian position of, I need to use my stores as distribution centers. I know that doesn't make intuitive sense, because it's like the most expensive real estate that you could use for that, but it puts me way closer to the customer with product. And for a lot of them that are omni-channel today, they'll say, look, we're seeing upwards of 30% or more of the inventory that I send to a store is going out the back of the store in ship from store versus going out of the front of the store from customer walk-in. But when you look at, you know, just that pressure for faster and faster and faster, it should be available in hours and not days. The closer you can stage that inventory to a customer, the faster you can get it to them, and more cheaply to do it that way too. So I think there's pressure to look at stores from that perspective. And then I think as well, this whole owner experience, you touched on that a little bit earlier, that, you know, it's not just about the purchase. Like, there's a whole bunch of stuff that should happen after that. You should have a relationship with that customer, and you should be providing ways for them to engage with you that sustain that relationship, because that's how you win next time. And stores can be that location that serves as that home base for the consumer for that kind of relationship. So services could be focused on, you know, all that after purchase stuff, whether it's repair or maintenance or education, or how to use it, or, you know, ways, opportunities to use it. But it could also be on kind of celebrating that lifestyle of whatever that company stands for. So, you know, if you stand for saving customers money, let's say Target or Walmart, why aren't you holding like how to operate a budget, right? How to set up a household budget classes at your store to get consumers there. And by the way, if you're helping them save money in their lives, the odds that they're going to turn around and spend that with you later or in that same visit are actually pretty good. So that aspect of retail frustrates me, because I see people really dismiss it, or it's hard. It's like, yeah, but you can't just live and breathe off of, I just sell other people's brands. It's just not going to cut it.
I think you're spot on. I think that when we think about brands at retailers of yesteryear, like the Radio Shacks of the world,
Mm-hmm.
the only one I can think of today, frankly, is like a Home Depot or Lowe's, where you actually go in there and the associates know what they're talking about. So they're not just there to facilitate a transaction, right? I think that too many associates in stores, too many stores, not the associate's fault, it's the retailer, where their focus is just facilitating a sale versus, to your point, educating, providing services, doing more. You have that human one-to-one connection within a store that you don't online. And so there's so much you can do. You go into Home Depot, you're like, look, I've got this thing I want to wire, or you're doing some plumbing, whatever. You take the little piece, they show you what to do, they explain it to you, they'll help you. I mean, they're guiding you on how to essentially find the right products and then use those products, versus you go into other stores and it's just a matter of like, okay, yeah, you want this, it's on aisle 4, go get it. I'm not going to help you choose the one you want. You want whatever you're looking for, beans in a can. I'm not going to tell you which beans are best for you, but they're on aisle 4. And I think that shift needs to occur within these retailers if they want to have a relationship beyond a transactional one.
Yeah, totally agree. Totally agree. And I think, one area where I see the potential for some of that, getting that expertise back in stores, like a lot of retailers have invested in call center, customer service operations, and a lot of it's to support the growth in the online business. And it's funny because I hear all the time, gosh, I wish my store associates were as knowledgeable and capable as my call center reps. It's like, well, think about the environment that you've got your store associates in versus the environment that you have your call center reps in. They're surrounded by screens. They have all of this information right at their fingertips. And your store associate is standing in the store, and more likely than not, they have no access to technology except for a point of sale device that has been locked down to only ring transactions. So you can't use it for anything else anyway. And so sometimes, they're bringing their own devices to try to move around that so that they at least can look up what's on the website as their response. But I think until there's a willingness to embrace technology as a way to deliver a lot of that information to store associates, there's going to be an upper limit on just how much that store associate can really be that expert to the customer. Because you can 100%. Have the expertise from whatever the lifestyle. If you were an electrician and you're standing in the electrical aisle at Lowe's, that's awesome. But if you can't find the inventory that the consumer needs to solve their problem, then you only took it halfway. You didn't make it all the way to the end.
Precisely. And I think this is intrinsically a problem, not just in retail, but in most organizations, where we want individuals to deliver some arbitrary value to a consumer, and yet we don't incentivize them for the behaviors we're looking for, right? Like in one sense, you've got some retail stores that incentivize people on commissions, right? Okay, that makes sense. It's a salesperson. You're going to get somebody to buy something. But at the same time, and I know it's difficult, but at the same time, wouldn't it be better if you incentivize store associates against lifetime value, against sentiment of consumer, against how that person feels after they walk out of the store regarding Nordstrom, regarding Lowe's, regarding that experience that they got, not just what they purchased? Because ultimately, we all know, and this is intuitive, you can look at the data, but it's intuitive. If you have a good experience, you're going to go back there. You're going to continue talking about them, and you're going to talk about how amazing it was that you went to Home Depot. You wanted to put some gas line together in your house for some natural gas thing into your grill, and you couldn't figure it out online. You went into Home Depot. The lady or gentleman helped you. You figured it out, and it happened within 5-10 minutes. You only spent $5 to get that one piece, and you got it done, right? But employees are typically not incentivized against that. And it's a massive undertaking, right? Employee incentivization is a big deal in any organization. But I think that we have to start taking a look at within our organizations, each and every one of us within our teams, determine what kind of experience we want consumers to get from us, or those clients that we're working with. And are our employees incentivized to deliver on that? And I think in many cases they aren't.
Incentivized and empowered. I mean, a lot of times they don't even have access to how to save that customer experience. So yeah, totally agree.
Nikki, talk to us. Let's talk a little about retail innovation, and talk to us about some of the trends that you're seeing that have promise, and then some of the ones that you're seeing that are duds and they're likely going to fail.
Yeah, so then I'll start with live streaming, because that one to me could go either way. I'm fascinated by it because I think there's great potential to unlock the value of that expertise of the in-store associate.
Absolutely.
But I also see retailers organizing to formalize it in a way that would take it out of the store. And I feel like they're going to lose so much authenticity and genuineness and, real face of your brand on the front line. They're going to lose a lot of that if they take that out. But so like I said, it could go either way. Like if you leave it in the store, if you really let store associates essentially set up their own business of affiliate selling and let them go to town and unleash them, then you have the potential. You have some risk, of course, because you don't know what they're going to say and you don't know where they might be filming and all of that. You just got to get over that. We live in a TikTok world. Just get over that.
Yeah, at the same time, you don't know what the associate's going to say when somebody walks in either.
And yes, and I guess because it's amplified and because it could go viral, there's so much more worry. But you've just got to get over that. And
but I think that just to jump in there for a moment, I think this is a massively missed opportunity for most retailers, which is you've got experts in your store, and over the last 18 months, many of them that were just sitting there waiting for customers to come in, or they were closed. But once they opened up, just waiting for customers to come in, you've got a site that is performing to whatever level it is. All it took was a simple integration on their sites, and one that was kind of from a consumer experience standpoint, very clear that, hey, chat with somebody in store right now, video chat with them. And give them access to a human in the store. That bridges the gap significantly. But to your point, there's process, there's procedure, there are things that won't allow them to do it. And then at the same time, it can be done, and I've seen both ways, done exceptionally well, where it's integrated into that experience. The person's in the store, they talk to them, and then it can be done incredibly poorly, where it's just someone in the call center talking to you. You might as well be chatting with them. And then again, back to the point I made earlier, the consumer doesn't get value.
Yep. Exactly. Yeah. That being able to walk around the store and be like, oh, you mean this? Yeah, I have that. Let me show you, and, pull it right off the shelf, I think is huge. I think we underestimate just how much of the potential impact that has. And if it's your local store, I mean, it doesn't have to be. That's part of the power is that, look, if your local store is slammed, I could connect you to somebody else. Sure. But if it's your local store, if it's literally like, I had a great conversation with this person who showed me this stuff, and now I can walk into that store and actually see that person, meet them in person. Like, I think we're totally underplaying the value of those kinds of relationships that retailers could be building. And they always are worried about, am I doing enough online? Am I engaging with my consumers enough online? If you've got an army of thousands of employees who could be doing that for you, and that could exponentially expand your capability to engage with those consumers. And if you're so afraid of what they might say and what they might do, why did you hire them in the first place? I never understand that.
No, absolutely. Give us some more. What else? What other trends?
Let's see. I mean, I talked about that real blurring of the lines of omnichannel from a B2B, B2C, like forget it, wholesale, retail, there's not going to be any difference. That one really fascinates me, just because I know how hard that's going to be to deliver on the back end. But I do think there's enough forces at play in terms of supporting, the retail channel. Sure. As a brand that I think we're going to be talking about that some more over the next 10 years for sure. Let's see other innovations that I'm very fascinated about at a real tactical level. And one that I was sort of surprised didn't take off as much during the pandemic, but that as a personally as a shopper, I hope sticks around, his appointment setting to come in to shop. I really hope that sticks around. And to the point of first party data, if you enable your customers to set appointments to come into the store, how much easier is your scheduling? Like your labor scheduling for stores is now 100% predictable. What you know about those consumers who are coming into the store and what you can provide to that store associate, 100% predictable. Like you could actually package together, here's what you need to know about this customer. Here's what they were looking at online before they decided to set an appointment in the store. Like you could provide so much information to really make a difference in that interaction. I'm just amazed that that's still like we had to do it because we had to manage capacity, but I'm not sure that we're going to keep it kind of a thing. And I'm like, no, keep that. You want that.
Yeah, I mean, it's like curbside pickup, right? Like curbside pickup will certainly stay. Curbside pickup may even grow. I mean, I know that certain retail developers that I've spoken with are actually building curbside pickup as part of the parking lot
Mm.
infrastructure that they're building for new developments, because they realize that it is a trend. Consumers like it. If you want to pick something up, you know exactly what it is. Just drive through, pick it up, and leave.
Yeah, I kind of have mixed feelings about pickup. I there's definitely locations where it's just never going to happen. I mean, like
Sure,
if you're on a main street, right, where people have to parallel park to get into your store,
certainly.
like that ain't never going to happen. And I think, grocery 100%. I don't think anybody's going to try to take that back. I have spent, I spent a summer sitting in my car for 30 minutes waiting for Home Depot to bring me an item out to my car that I had ordered online several hours ago. And that was not an enjoyable experience, even in Denver, where I am. 90 in your car, even with the air conditioning, is not fun. So I'm more skeptical about the longevity of curbside. I think there are situations where it will stick, but I think that there are going to be retailers also who the first chance that they get to take that away, they'll take it away. It's a hassle for them. It's
Sure.
not that great of an experience for consumers either when it's not that convenient. So
Certainly, and I think that's why some of these developers are thinking about how they actually build it
make it
into the
more convenient.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly, into the environment, into the structure. So, Nikki, give us one final big, bold prediction
Oh my
as
gosh.
it relates to commerce over the next 24 months.
Over the next 24 months. So I'm not sure that this is bold, but I'll throw it out there as a warning. We're seeing a lot of brick and mortar, omni-channel kind of retailers who, because there was such online demand over the pandemic, are holding back a lot of inventory in their e-commerce DCs today. And to me, it's a huge concern. They should be shipping as much inventory to stores as possible, especially if they have the ability to reach into stores to get that inventory back out if it was a
Sure.
mistake. Consumers are coming back to stores. They are coming back to stores en masse as soon as they are comfortable. Back to school is going to be a huge shopping event because we've already gone a year without having a real back to school anyway. And kids grow and you have to take them in to try stuff on. You just can't, wing it from that perspective. It's too hard. And consumers want to go back and take
Sure.
their kids into stores to try all that stuff on and want to make a day of it and want to experience that. If consumers go back to stores and stores don't have the inventory that they're looking for, then you've just killed your store business effectively. This is it. This rest of this year is do or die for stores. If you don't have a good experience when consumers come back to stores, all you've done is validated for them that they should just buy everything from you online. Is that bold enough?
That is quite bold, and I think that it's fantastic advice for everyone to heed. I think that, to your point, it's not only a matter of, I mean, many brands had supply chain issues just getting product over the last 18 months. Now, the point is product and inventory allocation, making sure you have inventory where consumers are. And then ultimately, to your point, you can solve a lot of this by making sure that you are able to distribute from your retail store. So you've got the ability to fulfill orders for people that are walking in, as well as out the back to people that are ordering online or curbside pickup. Nikki, this has been a fantastically insightful conversation. I hope the audience got a lot out of it. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me anytime.
Thanks everyone for tuning in and looking forward to seeing you all next time. Bye-bye.